Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وخير الأمور أوازمها وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال تعالى في محكم آياته وآخر كتبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. My respected brothers and sisters, may Allah's peace, His guidance, His mercy, His protection be and His forgiveness be with you in this life and the day you are lowered in your graves and the day you are taken out to be taken to the day on the day of judgment. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Inshallah, today we will study together Surah Al-Baqarah, which is the second chapter of Quran, ayah number 180, 181 and 182. And next week ayat will be from ayah number 183. That's where the ayat of Ramadan, about Ramadan, starts from. So inshallah, we will start the program today from an ayah of Surah Qamar, Surah Al-Qamar, which is 54th Surah of Quran and ayah number 17. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر. The translation closer to the meaning in English: and we have made this Quran easy to understand and remember. Then is there anyone who will remember from this Quran, who will receive the admonition from this Quran? The only dhikr, my respected brothers and sisters, which we have been told or we have learned ourselves, is that make this dua and or say this name for so many times or this word for so many times without learning or knowing or implementing the meaning of the dhikr which we are doing. Quran itself, the whole Quran itself is a dhikr. And if we don't study Quran, and if we don't try to learn from Quran, no other dhikr is going to help us. Wa Allahu alam bis-sawab wa ayadu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. In Muslim countries, you may see, in a lot of countries, a lot of Muslim places, I have seen that on industries, on these palaces and huge farmlands, having an ayah or two from Quran right at the entrance. For example, some of the places you would see, they use the ayah, Hada min fadl Rabbi. Or they would say, Masha Allah, la quwwata illa billah. And when you find out that who owns this palace and who owns this farmland or who owns this industry, you will learn that they acquired all these things from wrongful means, from bribes, from tax evasion, from taking people's rights away and through other sinful means, except very few. It doesn't mean that everybody gets an industry or farm or a huge palace from haram, but majority of us are like that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us towards Quran so we learn that what is the halal mean of earning and what is haram, and what is not ours, we can't use it and then put Allah's name at the entrance of it and say, Masha Allah, la quwwata illa billah, or say, Hadha min fadl Rabbi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very eloquently in this ayah, my respected brothers and sisters, ask this question about Quran. And it says, فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Is there anyone who follows the lessons he receives after reading this Quran? Does he go into detail in trying to understanding it, learning the meaning from it? And when he learns the meaning, does he implement it on himself first, including myself? Every exam, my respected brothers and sisters, require the person who is taking the exam to know the subject matter that exam is about. And our questioning in the grave and on the day of judgment will be about the matters which are discussed in this Quran and the practice by Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So today, inshallah, we start the program, like I said earlier, from ayah number 180 to ayah number 182 of second chapter of Quran, chapter Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خير الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين فمن بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلونه إن الله سميع عليم فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه إن الله غفور رحيم. Now inshallah the translation in English closer to the meaning of these three ayat. It is prescribed for you when death approaches you, if you have any assets, you should make a will to parents and close relatives according to what is appropriate. This is a duty upon the righteous people. Then whosoever changes the will after he has heard it or read it, the sin is upon him who alters it, who changes it. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. But if one fears error, sees error, or fears sin from the testator means the person who is making the will about himself, that this is my will. But if person who fears error or sin from the testator and corrects it between the parties, between the people, there is no sin upon him. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is oft forgiving and the most merciful. Sadaqallahu ladhim. Inshallah, now the tafsir of the first ayah, ayah number 180. The ayah number 180 of second chapter, my respected brothers and sisters, it is called the ayah of will. Ayah of the will and the last testament that we call. It just sets the general guidelines as of will is required, that is required for a will, and must be, and the second thing it sets is that it must be written correctly and it must be implemented correctly. The ayat of a specific distribution of assets or wealth of a person, regardless of the value, came later on in the Surah Nisa, which is the fourth chapter of Quran, in ayah number 7, ayah number 11, ayah number 12, ayah 19, and ayah 176, and also in Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is the fifth chapter of Quran, in ayat number, the fifth chapter of Quran, in ayah number 106 and 107. We will study the topic of a specific distribution of assets which are mentioned in Surah An-Nisa and Surah Al-Ma'idah, when insha'Allah ta'ala if we live that long to come to this study of Surah An-Nisa, which is the fourth chapter, and Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is the fifth chapter of Quran. All Muslims, men and women, are required to write a will to avoid any disputes within the family which may arise during the lifetime or after the death of the person, or any illegal claims from people, those who are not the inheritor, are not the family of the person. Like somebody may come up and say that, I gave such and such money to so and so. So now I need that money, and he does not have any proof. So it is required to write the will, and a person can write the will about the things which he wants to do during his life, and also about after he is deceased, after he is departed from this world. There have to be minimum 2 cognizant, neutral, independent people of knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence in the matters of inheritance, in case of in case of death of an heir or divorce, in matters of inheritance as the executor. Those minimum 2 witnesses can also work as executor of the will of the person after he's gone, or he or she become incapacitated to implement the will of what he wants to do during his lifetime. It is the responsibility of the executor and the witnesses to speak truth, and executor to execute the will truthfully, and also to correct if there are any mistakes against Quran and Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which a testator made in writing that will. So it is the responsibility of the executor and the witnesses. When the person is alive, they should advise the person that you are making this mistake and you cannot do such and such thing. The testator, the one who is writing his will, that this should happen to my assets and my property or my bank balances or whatever, and the testator can change his or her will anytime and as many times as needed during his lifetime, as the need, and because it depends upon the need, as the need arises, as the situation changes, such as in case of death of a family member, or a divorce, or birth of a child, or if the heirs, if the family willfully agree to give their share to somebody else, etc. And we will come to it inshallah. So these are the basic things which we need to know about will. Then we will go into a specific when we come to ayat of Surah Nisa and Surah Al-Ma'idah inshallah. When Almighty Allah revealed the ayat of a specific distribution of inheritance, this is Tafsir Al-Qurtubi saying, then when Almighty Allah revealed ayat of a specific distribution of inheritance, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah's last final prophet and messenger, established 2 fundamental rules, and we must pay attention to this. What are those rules? The rule number 1 is the distribution of portion laid down in Quran can neither be changed nor any ayah can be disinherited from the will. That you cannot say, which is in Arabic and in Turkey and in Pakistan and all that, they say aq ittim. I have taken that person out of my will, or I have taken the so and so out of my will because he is this and he is that. Nobody can make a favoring or a decision going against any one of the legal heirs of the person who is writing the will. Second rule is a person has the right, because somebody in their lifetime they may tell you that I have decided to give half of my wealth or half of my bank balance and half of my property. Okay? Because if the person was saying that I'm giving half of my debt, the money I owe to my family, nobody will accept it. But they are looking for that if there is some portion of wealth which is given to me. If I serve this person well, if I keep quiet on his atrocities, if I do this and I do that, then he may give one of his cars to me. So this is the second rule. That's where it applies. That a person has right to give only 1/3 of his or her total assets to someone other than the family. You cannot give that 1/3 to a person who is already going to get his or her share from your inheritance. So it has to be somebody. If you don't want to give 1/3, then you have to give, equal distribution according to those ayat of Quran in Surah Nisa and Surah Al-Ma'idah. You have to distribute mainly about, in Surah Nisa, 4th chapter, ayah number 7, 11, 12, and 19. Then they have to distribute the will according to those. Those people or organizations or causes. If a person says that I have I know a woman and I loved her, but I didn't marry her, and I want to give her 1/3 of the assets which I have, which I may leave behind. He cannot do that. The people or the organization or causes which he wants to give 1/3, which he can only give 1/3 in his lifetime, if it is his earning. Those causes must not be any of his family members, or run any of his family members, or in any family members are receiving their share from the assets. They cannot receive anything from the 1/3. And those causes cannot be any cause which is against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and against the practices of Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That a person is dying and he says that he can take the 1/3 of my assets because I like such and such circus, so give it to that circus. So, that is not allowed to do. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah says, Kutiba alaykum. Kutiba means it is prescribed for you, means it has been mandated for you. It is mandatory and compulsory for you that when it comes to distribution of wealth, you are going to distribute the wealth of a deceased person after his lifetime according to such and such ayat and orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next portion where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about is إِذَا حَذَرَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ, when death approaches any of you. Some scholars says that according to the previous ayat, because that was the previous ayah was about qisas, the proper equal distribution, equal retribution of some hurt or some murder which you have suffered. So those are the ayat of qisas. So some scholars have said, this is according to Tafsir al-Qurtubi and Tafsir al-Tabari, that the scholars say that according to previous ayat about qisas, this ayah may apply to the one who is about to lose his or her life, as in matters of qisas, where the heirs of the murdered person want life for life of the murderer. Imam al-Qurtubi further says that since the death is imminent any time to any one of us, this ayah applies to us, to every Muslim who is living. It applies to all of us. And if we look at our families, wherever you are from, you would find out that there are people, those who have done the greatest injustice in distribution of their wealth. A person lived his life the way he lived, but when he's leaving the world, he doesn't know how to distribute his wealth and gives it to somebody who was not authorized, and didn't give it to one who was authorized to receive. It was his right to receive. That person, regardless of how he lived his life, is committing a major sin at the time of his death. Wa'ayadu billah. The one who has debts, this is a common sense. The one who has no debts and no assets, then there is no distribution to anyone. But he or she can still write the wills about other things. That when I am gone, if you are financially doing better, then please, for Allah's sake and for the reward of mine, your father or your mother, I am, and you should do such and such good deed. So may Allah will reward me for that. You can do that even if the person who is dying does not have no assets and he or she does not have any debts. Those who have assets but no family or relatives, even that person is required to write a will for maruf, appropriate distribution. Maruf is what? Appropriate. So what is proper, what is appropriate, what is correct, what is right. So for an appropriate distribution of wealth, it is required for him to write it. Who he wants to give if he doesn't have anybody in the world. And all those causes have to be the causes which are not against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the practices of Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam in case of Muslims. We all know of accidental and sudden death, my respected brothers and sisters. Or a person goes into coma. You may have heard about it. The person goes into coma and never came out of it and died in that condition. If there is no will, he is responsible. Nobody else. The person who died, nobody else is responsible but him, that he did not leave any will behind. It is our responsibility, and I will quote a hadith inshallah a little later about that how long can we live without a will. So the next part of the ayah is in taraka khayra al-wasiyyatu lil walidaini wal aqrabina bil ma'ruf haqqan alal muttaqin. The word wasiyya, my respected brothers and sisters, means will. Means anything which someone wants to be done during his lifetime and could not do, or something after his death. Not only the distribution of wealth, but other things also. But those things have to be proper and appropriate. Remember the word which is used, al-ma'ruf, bil-ma'ruf. So appropriate, correct, right, proper, and not anything which is vulgar, and not anything that is not allowed, that's not permissible in Islam. Due to our lack of knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, we follow our culture, my respected brothers and sisters, very unfortunately. We follow our culture. We think that the will is a declaration. And you know, people will get upset if you ask them that, have you written a will for yourself? So they will say, why? You know, I'm healthy. I have nothing wrong with me. Are you expecting me to die soon? Well, the will is not about your death only. And if it is about death, it is such a blessing for your family to protect their rights. So you don't leave this world without a will. And then you will be asked that, why did you create this chaos? That look what's happening after you. Because there was no will. Or in case in America and European countries, the government will step in and the property and your assets and everything will go into probate. And the government will distribute according to how it is. And if you are a Muslim, and alhamdulillah, it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you have a written will, and the best thing to do is put it on video also and on paper, and you have minimum 2 witnesses, those who are executor of your will, those who are correcting because they have knowledge of Islamic fiqh of wasiyah, the Islamic jurisprudence, the laws of inheritance in Islam, then those people can correct you. So we have to prepare the will. The other reason for preparation of will is that it reminds us that we are not here forever. This is the most easiest path we choose. I'm here forever. Nothing is going to happen. I'm healthy. I'm fine. I'm dandy. I'm very healthy. I'm not dying. So wait, we'll do it 10 years later. There is no guarantee that that any one of us, I will live before I complete this sentence. If the ayahs agree, without any force, my respected brother and sister, we consider that declaration of will is about what needs to be done or what would be done after our death. All the ayahs, this is Tafsir As-Siddi says, if all the family members, ayahs who agree, without force or pressure to distribute the assets in a different manner than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has suggested in Quran, then it is okay, they can do that. There are, for example, that if a person has, 2 sons, and one of the son is doing very well and the other one is not, with the goodness in his heart and for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for his love and concern and care for his brother, he can say that, okay, give my portion, what I am getting, to my brother or to my sister, or sister says vice versa. Okay, so that is this is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that also comes under the definition what is appropriate. Haqqan alal muttaqeen. In case of joint ownership of between spouses, between husband and wife, if one of the spouse dies, the other spouse can keep her or his half the share in everything, and it still gets the share from the portion of the share which Allah has stipulated in Quran and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught in Sunnah. They can get that share also from the deceased's rest of the property, but she or he will keep the half if they have joint ownership of anything between them. The children and anyone else who qualifies to inherit may relinquish their right and consent to their parents, because there are grown-up children and they see that the father has died and mother is left alone, and they come over, give me. Instead of that, they may relinquish, and it is haqqan alal muttaqeen, that if you are refraining from deliberate disobedience of Allah, if you are a muttaqi, have some mercy in your heart for your mother who is left alone, and give your portion of inheritance to your mother and let her run the affairs, because alhamdulillah you are well off. Another wrong thing which is happening in Muslim countries, not in Turkey though. Turkey, they have different rights on that. In Muslim countries, majority of the Muslim countries, people, those who are ignorant, arrogant, regardless of the degrees they have on the wall, there are a lot of ignorant people, those who have no knowledge of Quran, including those who are leading prayers, have no knowledge of wasiyah or no knowledge of distribution of wealth. So what is happening, that somebody dies, he gives all the property and everything else to the children, to the two sons, one son, three sons, and then don't give anything to the daughter. That is against Islam and a major sin, to not give the share of the due share of the inheritance to women, to wives, to the daughters. And it is not because they are weak. It is not because they are weak. When we come to those ayat, you will learn. وَلِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. That if there are two daughters and one son, and if he takes, each daughter take 1/3 and the son takes 1/3, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ, their share is like the share of those two daughters. So what did they get? They get, suppose, 1/3. So total of 1/3, that's how, the two daughters get, and the son will get the same. And we will come to it. I don't want to go into further detail of it. Everyone entitled to their shares of inheritance must consent willingly. In villages, in places, and among the arrogant people are forced to give up their rights. Some people will show up with AR-15 or AK-47 and say, so-and-so died and he was my this and this, and you should give your right in the will and give your portion of the inheritance and give it to me. Or leave it for my wife. And if you don't, here it is. This is being practiced in Muslim countries. Stop pointing finger in the direction of Jews and Christians for your own ill. Control yourself, learn and implement the rules and the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and practices of Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah will change your condition. Allah will change your condition. You will not have enemies. The later ayat show the distribution of assets is to take place after paying the debts. A person died and he has debts. His debts need to be paid. Or if he has a house and there is a debt on the house and the wife is alive, then wife takes over her share, but his share of the debt must be paid from his assets before all these vultures start coming over and say, I have this much share, or so and so gave me this much, so I need to have that. No, his debts need to be paid. This will come in later ayat, we will see it. But I have not so far heard the people are implementing as such, unless the person who died has knowledge. And there are, mashallah, tabarakallah, there is a lot of barakah in Ummat Muhammad, that there are a lot of people with knowledge, and they execute their own will and the wills of others, or advice in the will of others in the proper manner. And that also come from that portion of the ayah, haqqan alal muttaqeen. In an authentic hadith, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is not right for a Muslim who owes something to spend. In one of the hadith it says 2 nights, in another hadith it says 3 nights. That it is not right for a Muslim who owes something to spend 3 nights without making a written will. If you owe somebody money, because if you have debt, that is the money you owe. The money you have is not your money, is the money of your family who you would leave behind. So don't be without a will more than 2 or maximum 3 days, according to another hadith. And wallahu alam bis-sawab. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam further said that it is better for you to leave your family well provided than to leave them in need, begging from other people. When you don't have a will and all these disputes arise, then what did you do? You are gone, but you throw these people in the lion's den. That so many people are attacking them and asking their share and this and that, because you left without writing a will. So we need to be careful about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says haqqan. Haqqan means a duty and an obligation with justice. A person understands duty, but does not fulfill his duty according to justice, then he does not understand what haqq is. Although the Quran mentioned it as haqqan alal muttaqeen, it is a duty upon the righteous. People still do not distribute the will, or do not even make a will according to Quran and Sunnah. The making a will is mandatory, my respected brothers and sisters, if there are assets and debts. In a hadith, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anh and Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh said that the companions of the Prophet used to start writing their will as such. Now listen to this carefully. The opening of the will, the preface, the opening of the will is also provided in hadith. What do you have to write in hadith? Then you go back to Quran and go back to Sunnah again, and then you will find the distribution of your assets, how it's supposed to take place. And the wording starts with, this is the will of so and so and so and so, who testifies that there is no deity worthy of worship but Allah alone, and with no equal and no partner, and that Muhammad is his slave, servant, and his messenger. There is no doubt that the day of judgment is coming, and Allah will raise all of us up, including those in grave. I command my family. This is the will need to start. And this is absent in a lot of wills I have seen. I command my family to fear Allah as he should be feared, by refraining from his deliberate disobedience, act correctly towards one another, and obey Allah and his messenger. And I advise my family as Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam advised their family, which is also an ayah of Quran which we have studied earlier, ayah number 132 of 2nd chapter, which says, O my sons, Allah has chosen this deen for you, so do not die except as a Muslim. This is an advice which every will should start from. All these wording which I just read, and we are dumbfounded about this, that how to write it, how to get it, where to get it. Tafsir of ayah number, this is the conclusion of 180. I don't want to go too much in detail because this ayah we can sit on and talk about it and study this for a month, just this portion. Let's move on. Tafsir of ayah number 181. And it starts from فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُبَدِّلُونَهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Then whoever changes the will after he has heard or read it himself, the sin is only upon those who alter the will, who change the will. Indeed, Allah is hearing and knowing, all hearing and all knowing. My respected brothers and sisters, there are two situations. Will number one is the will in last testament was 100% correct, but the executor changed it under pressure or because of some of his personal interests. He changed the will. The second position is that the one who wrote the will, the witnesses of the time or the executor of the time may have died. So the new executor, when he finds the will, he finds that there are problems in the will and it is not according to Quran and Sunnat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now it is his duty. Now it is his duty to correct those mistakes. So we are talking about those who are changing the will with evil intents. The will was correct. It was written correctly. But this person came in the middle. He kept quiet at the time when the person was writing the will, or we just want somebody as a witness who has absolutely no clue what Quranic orders are or what Sunnat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, and we took him as an executor or as a witness in the will. So now he is applying that will. And because of some evil intent, bad intent, he changed the will. He changed the will. So this ayah addresses that first situation, which says, فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُبَدِّلُونَهُ. This portion of the ayah means that altered the will after hearing it, means whoever changed the will after hearing it from the testator himself, the one who was making the will was there alive and they directly heard from him, and also it was in writing, so they read it and alternatively confirmed from him the statement of the two witnesses who signed the will, commit a very, very serious sin in the haqq Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and haqq al-ibad. If he changes something, because he heard it, that this is the correct will, these are the witnesses, and this is the executor, but the executor or one of the witnesses under influence of some people changed that will. So that person is committing a very serious sin in the rights of Allah. The ayah indicates that a person mentions a debt, suppose, in his will, that I owe so and so much money. The person should do his best. The person is required, my respected brother and sister, all of us have taken loan. Forget about what we have. Use the credit card again. Take another loan. And didn't know that 2 hours from taking that loan or using the credit card, you can kick the bucket. You die. Now, or you become incapacitated, that, quadriplegic, that you cannot make a decision about any of your affairs. What our duty is that if we have debts, we have to pay those debts as soon as possible. And first duty is not to take that much debt which is hard for you to pay. We like to live show off. Instead of buying a brand new car which you drive out and drops the value by 20%, why can't you buy a 2-year-old car? No, because we have to show off. We have to, because the guy next door has a better car, or my, so-and-so's uncle has a better car, and I am in race. I'm in competition with him. I have to beat him in everything. So I go buy a bigger, better, more special color and tones and with more bells and whistles in my car. Now I'm in debt and I can't pay the debt. So it is required for a person who is living now not to be in that much debt and try to pay his debt most before he take more debt upon himself. Or it should be paid. You see, what happens that if you don't, then Quran says that all the distribution comes after paying your debts. And that is the first responsibility, my respected brothers and sisters, of the executor of the will. Whether it is court or whether it is, if it is court in a Muslim country, then may Allah help you. Because justice is not part of our life. Justice is not part of our life. We are proud to take, and the loot which does not belong to us, we take it. And the more powerful of among us takes the bigger share. Whether it is the president or prime minister or the king or khadim of this or khadim of that. We loot people in the name of Islam. It is a sin for the testator to delay. It is a sin that there is a debt. Person did not pay. He was lavishly living, but he cannot afford to pay back. So now it came to the executors of the will or the family. So now if he has some assets which can reduce the burden of the debt, then the first distribution is to pay those who this person owed the money, not his son, his wife, and this and that. Pay him, pay the others, those who owe. Make this person buried freely. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one of the hadith, I don't know the reference properly, and may Allah forgive me if I'm making a mistake. At one time, somebody came and asked Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam to lead the janazah of somebody. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, did you pay his debt? They said, no. They said, go pay his debt first. Go pay his debt first. We have no clue. We're just living with a blindfold on our brain. A person's will, something which is haram and prohibited, it is required for the executor not to follow that part of the will, which is haram. He says, well, I have an interest in such and such business, and it is a liquor store, and we owe this much money. So take this much from here and put more items, more things in my liquor store. That part of the portion of the will cannot be executed. Cannot be executed. It has to be corrected. The executor's responsibility, it is executor's responsibility not to carry out that portion of the will, including if someone wills 1/3. Remember we talked about that he can spend 1/3 of his total assets even during his lifetime and say that I want to give this much to so and so. That so and so have to be legitimate relationship. Legitimate relationship, legitimate business, legitimate purpose. If the purpose is not legitimate, then that 1/3 cannot be distributed. The executor must change it, and it is better to take that 1/3 and distribute it among the deserving family members, those who have right on the inheritance. Now we move on to the tafsir of the next ayah, ayah number 182. And where it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but if one fears, فَمَنْ خَافَ مِن مُؤْسٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. But if one fears error or sin from the person whose will is, and corrects that which is between the parties, correct the matter between the party who have right over the will, or the inheritance, then there is no sin upon him for correcting the will. Indeed, Allah is oft forgiving and most merciful. My respected brothers and sisters, the word faman means the one. The one. It can also mean whomsoever or whoever. Khaf, the word khaf means fear. Also means have knowledge of, know of the sinful or wrongful distribution of the matter, of the assets. So, فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُؤْسٍ جَنَفًا. Janafan, the word janafan means bias. That somebody means wrongful favor to somebody or inclination towards somebody in the will or against somebody in the will. That somebody has a right and you don't give, and somebody doesn't have a right and you has a specific right and you give him more. If the executor notices that, then he has to correct that, and he has to give because of the hadith, Ati kulla dhi haqqin haqqah, that whoever has right over something, the right of the people must be given to them correctly, rightfully, justifiably. That's what that means. The word bias means wrongful favor. Wrongful favor. Sayyidina Mujahid rahmatullah alayh said that this ayah means that whosoever fears that the testator, the one who is writing his will or preparing his will through somebody's help, is or will be biased and cut off some people from the inheritance to deliberately cause them harm or deliberately favor somebody else or even bring it about without doing it deliberately, then that must be corrected. Al-Qurtubi says this kind of bias is not necessarily a wrong action if the person it was not his intent to hurt people. If it was not intent, deliberately he wanted to favor someone and he wanted to hurt someone, then it is not, if he was not deliberate, then it is not a sin, but testator still has the responsibility to correct it and properly distribute it. There can be situations such as a person was in better financial condition and now has grown up children or grown up brothers and sisters and all that, and they are all well to do, and she or he has done everything for them during his lifetime or her lifetime, and now they are earning their life satisfactorily, and she or he, one of the testator, the one who is writing the will, has children who need more financial support and they are not earning now, then they can talk and they can give the rights. The older children can give the rights to the younger children or to their mother. It is also expected from the grown-up children to give up their share, helping their mother and their younger sibling. It's siblings. It is only human to have feelings for your family, that they have lost their father or lost their mother, a husband lost the wife or the wife lost her husband, and they are in need, and you are well off, you are doing well, you can earn more, and then you should give your share for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the reward of Allah. The person who does a good deed, when he or she tells the testator about the wrong in his or her will, a person wrote a will and you found out that there is a problem in the will. It is against the Quran and Sunnah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it is a good deed to go to the testator and tell him. But here in our culture, because we are Muslim by culture, not Muslim by Islam, there are two different things. We are Muslim by culture. So, nobody speaks up at the time and let the guy do whatever he does, then they participate and go bury him and all that, and then the rest of the family for the next, till they die, keep fighting each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the next portion of the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim. For Inna Allah Ghafurur Rahim means that Allah is always forgiving and always merciful. So if you have made a mistake, then you are required to repent and backtrack and correct the mistake which you made. But if you insist and if you don't correct the mistake and you continue to do, so remember that you can hide from people, but you cannot hide from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And your mistakes will come and bite you back again. So this is a requirement that we must remember that if we are weak, we can make mistake. But if there is somebody who has knowledge in Islamic inheritance, and he is independent, and he is neutral, and he is not intending to cause an intentional hurt to somebody, then it is his requirement to advise the people that your will is not correct. And only then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is oft forgiving and merciful and most merciful. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, Sayyidina Qatada, Al-Rabi ibn Anas, this is Ibn Anas, I'm quoting Tafsir al-Qurtubi. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, Sayyidina Qatada radiallahu an, Al-Rabi ibn Anas radiallahu an, and other companions and scholars said that the ayah means that anyone who knows the testator is biased and intends injury to some of his family members, but they cannot correct during his or her lifetime, then they should correct the will after that person dies and distribute according to Allah's orders. So these are the things which we don't know and we should know. The person does the right thing by correcting the will. Whoever corrects the will and advises is correctly in love and in love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to fall into deliberate disobedience of Allah. Only when the changes are and he can make those changes only according to the orders of Quran in Surah Nisa and Surah Al-Ma'idah, 5th chapter, ayah number 106 and 107. If someone knows or fears that the testator is biased in his will and favoring one over the other, they should change the wrong and take over and distribute correctly. Not somebody from outside, but the person who is the executor is supposed to be a just man or a woman. And correcting the will help the deceased. If somebody thinks that, my father gave it to me and you are not right to correct it, then your father is going to be punished, or mother is going to be punished for making a wrong will, but if you correct it, then the punishment will be removed. So for the sake of Allah and removal of punishment or hardship from your parents, it is better to correct, seek an advice, and give the right to whoever it is due to. It is a fard kifaya, Tafsir al-Qurtubi says, and if no one does it, it is a fard kifaya. You know of a story in your family or in your neighbor or someplace else, and you have good relationship with them, you have communication with them, and you keep quiet and the community does not interfere in it, since it is fard kifaya to do it, and if you don't do that, if you don't correct the wrong action, then the entire community is guilty of defying the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a serious matter, my respected brothers and sisters. You may hear people say that the deceased will such and such in sadaqah. That people say that when I am gone, there are so many wrong concepts among Muslims, and which we have to work very, very hard. Somebody would say that when I am gone, well, you may not be gone for next 17 and a half years, or next 3.5 years, or you may be gone next second. Say, when I am gone, then give this much amount or this thing in charity in cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I heard it many times, and I have advised people that if it is charity, khairul birri fi ajalih, that if it is charity, then the best thing to do about a good deed is to do it as soon as possible, not to leave it for tomorrow. What if you died? What somebody else who is hearing it did not execute it? Why didn't you in your own life give this sadaqah yourself while you were still alive and ticking? So do that as soon as possible. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, we have 6 minutes inshallah and we will conclude in time. Next week ayat will be important and they will be about Ramadan. What is Ramadan? Why are we fasting? Allah wants to see us hungry and thirsty and halfway to the bed sleeping? No. Then what is Ramadan? We will discuss that inshallah next week. Ayah number 183 and 184. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one of the hadith, it mentions in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim, that he was asked by people that which sadaqah is better, which charity is better. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you give at a time that you give in charity, when you need money yourself and you are healthy, that you have money and you need it for something. If you give a portion of it and you are healthy to earn more, that is the time, not after your death. After that, after the death, a person is not in need of money. It will be taken anyway. The inheritors will take it. Or if it goes in probate, the government will take it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam further said, it is better a man to give 1 dirham. 1 dirham, let's say $1. Let's say 1 Turk lira. Let's say 1 Pakistani rupees or 1 real. It is better for a man to give 1 dirham, which is when he is alive, than 100 dirham after he died. Because you're not sure that it will be done. But you said, you made a niyyah, you made an intention that this should be given. Why didn't you give when you were alive? So it says that the example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the example of someone who gives sadaqah or tells somebody else to give something in sadaqah after his death is like someone who gives food after he had filled his stomach. It's not needed for him. He is out of that need, then he is giving it to somebody. People have closets full of shoes, closet full of clothes, and all kind of things which they don't even remember when was the last time they wear. But when they die, what happens? Well, keep these 2 or 3 shirts of my father or my mother, or this 1 or 2 things of my father as mother or mother as a remembrance. It will remind me of my father. It will remind me of my older brother. And give rest of it in charity. Well, those things were hanging in the closet for years, then we did not give. We sat on it like a snake and a serpent, protecting it. What are you protecting it from? Give it. That giving in charity is 100 times better than when you are alive, than it is than when you give when you are dead. A person can pay zakat, from your inheritance. What you should do, that you should make a calculation. There are forms available. You can make calculations that I missed so many Ramadan, so many Siyam I missed, so many zakat I did not pay. Just take a good guess. Everybody is smart enough in money matters if they are not in religion. In money they are very smart. Very smart. Remember password of ATM without looking at it twice. They have memorized it. So, you know how many years you did not pay zakat, or how many prayers you missed, how many siyam you missed. Make a form, write it down, it's available on internet. And get the financial value of it. And take it out from your assets. Don't leave this world with debts on your account, debts which you owed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the poor of the community. Don't die with the dues of poor in your account. Allah would not forgive that. A person can pay, this is Tafsir al-Qurtubi said, a person can pay past zakat from his assets when he is alive, or if he has paid and he still suspects there may be something else left, then put it in your will. Ad-Dar al-Qutni related from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, harming people through a will, harming people through your will is a major sin, is a major sinful act. Sunan Abu Dawood rahmatullah alayh reported from Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, a man or woman can work to obey Allah for 60 years. Now listen to this part. A man or a woman can work in the cause of Allah, doing everything right in cause of Allah. For 60 years they live. And then when they are about to die, they make a wrong will and that will wipe out all the good deeds you sent forth of your entire life. So you have to be very careful with your will. Don't live more than 2 or 3 days without a will. You can change your will as many times as you want and any time you want. If the situation changes, you can change the will. You know, there are a lot of things happen. You have family members, those who died, well, they are not there to receive the will. So if you don't change it and you make the will, because I have seen situations where people made the will and instead on it they say, no, I have written my will, now I cannot change it. It is wrong. You can change your will. You have to make sure the executor of your will does not have any interest in your will. If he is well-to-do, then he does not need to take any money from your assets. But if he is in need, or he becomes in need when you die, and he was not in need when he became executor, but he became in need, he come to need, financial need, then you can give some money to him. That if he needs, then he should take these many dollars or riyals or dirham or Turkish lira, say, this much money. He can do that. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if you don't do that, and if you do everything right, but you made a wrong will, that is enough to throw you in fire if you don't correct it in your lifetime. That's why it is those who are executing the will, those who have witnessing the will, they are required to advise the person who is making the will that he is making a mistake. And if they cannot change it during his lifetime, when he is gone, you change it. You are authorized to do it by these 3 ayat. Ayah number 180, 181, and 182 of Surah Al-Baqarah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. We'll make dua inshallah, but prior to that, inshallah next week we'll see you. You can look me up on YouTube with my first, middle, and last initial, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And majority of the videos are available there, but there are about 80 plus videos there, but about 80 some videos are not has not been posted yet. Inshallah soon I'll be able to post them. Inshallah we'll make dua, but invite others to the program, share it with others. Knowledge, my respected brothers and sisters, this is not my knowledge. I am an ignorant, sinful person. This is not my knowledge. I study and put these things together and present it to you. I request you to pray for me and my household, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you. Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar wa qina adhab al-qabri wa qina adhab al-hashri wa qina adhab jahannama wa adkhilna al-jannata ma'al abrar bi rahmatika ya azizu ya ghaffar ya rabbal alamin. اللهم إن لك علينا حقوقا كثيرا فيما بيننا وبين خلقك فيما بيننا وبينك وعلينا حقوقا فيما بيننا وبين خلقك اللهم ما كان لك منها فاغفره لنا وما كان لخلقك فتحمله عنا وأغننا بحلالك عن حرامك وبطاعتك معصيتك من سواك يا واسع المغفرة. اللهم إنا نسألك إيمانا كاملا ويقينا صادقا ورزقا واسعا وقلبا خاشعا ولسانا ذاكرا وحلالا طيبا وتوبة نصوحا وتوبة قبل الموت وراحة عند الموت والمغفرة عند الحساب والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار برحمتك يا عزيز يا غفار. تقبل الله صيامكم وقيامكم وصالح الأعمال منكم ولا تنسونا في دعاءكم الصالح إن شاء الله. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه ونور أرشه وأفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. والفاتحة. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Inshallah, see you next week. Same place, same time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.